How's it going, my fellow Padawans? It's your boy, Blu-rayDave, back in another storytime video. And I know I've talked about this briefly a few times in other videos, but I never really touched upon it, like my love for this franchise. Yep, you already read the title of the video. We're going to talk about it. Yeah, how I got exposed to Star Wars for the first time. Technically, I was first exposed to it back in 2008 with McDonald's, like, like the bobblehead toys. Like, I have all of those. Like, I got Han Solo. Both me and my brother got Han Solo, and we just didn't care for it because we didn't know what it was at the time. Like, I'm sure if our uncle would have, like, brought us to see the Clone Wars movie in the theater, like, maybe my opinions would have changed. Honestly, I think I would have just been interested in the Clone Wars, yeah. But really, oh man, honestly, my very first exposure to the franchise, I think everybody has a story to tell when it comes to Star Wars, like how they've been introduced. Like, I don't know if like, anyone I talked to who's said, like, how they've been exposed to Star Wars, like, if they said this specifically, like, that could just be my brain playing with me, but, like, I'm gonna show you guys how my love of it came to be. Yeah. Oh yeah, the 1995 VHS box set. Seriously, like, this is like the one box set that people pretty much talk about. Like, other comments I see on YouTube videos, like, oh gosh, I remember owning that VHS set. Like, man, seriously, like, honestly, this was like the quote-unquote last edition, like the unaltered editions of Star Wars before George re-released them in '97. Because really, guys, if we want to, like, get technical here, the last time that George released the unaltered versions of the original trilogy was in 2006. And those DVDs are very hard to come by, and I do not care for those DVDs because I'm happy with the 2004 DVD set that I have. Like, seriously, that was the last time. So those DVDs are 18 years old now. Can you believe it? Like, man. Yeah, seriously, like, my uncle, he owns this set. I'm happy that I got my own. I remember I was like, pun not intended, I was forced to watch all of these, not just with my uncle, but with my parents. Like, I remember, oh man, again, my brain is playing tricks on me because I saw these movies when I was probably about, I probably want to say 8 years old, because seriously, younger me at the time didn't really understand or care for these movies, like what these were about, but I knew my uncle liked them, right? Like, again, this is where my brain plays tricks on me, because I thought there was, like, obviously everybody knows, like, the iconic, like, trailer for each and every one of these, and then, like, the interviews, right? But the trailer, again, in my brain, it played differently. Like, I thought, oh my gosh, maybe George could have pulled this off back in the day, but, like, how my brain sees the trailer back in the day was, like, it was totally different. Like, I could see Clone Wars Anakin, like, in his full Clone Wars garb, like, him walking on a moon and all that. Like, oh my gosh, like, my brain must have, like, really, like, imagined that pretty well, because when I got into Star Wars a couple years later, I was disappointed. Like, oh man, like, I guess my brain was playing tricks on me, right? Of course, I remember the interviews vividly, and then again when I got into this franchise, and eventually when I borrowed my uncle's VHS set box set a couple times, I got, just like every kid on the planet who's owned this box set, I got so terribly annoyed with the interviews because, again, I just didn't care. Like, I didn't like the fact that they started before the movie actually started, like, whichever one you were watching. Like, I'm just like, man, I don't care about this. But, like, of course, the years later, you start to appreciate the interviews. Like, honestly, George Lucas made the impossible with this franchise. Seriously, like, George Lucas is the reason why I'm writing scripts now, like, because I love playing to the imagination. I want to create, like, original content. Again, in Hollywood, original content is very rare now, like, very, very rare, right? Like, everything needs to be based off of something, right? Of course, there's nothing wrong with inspiration with, like, creating your stuff. Like, again, with the George here, with Star Wars, like, he got, like, so much inspiration from like different serials and World War II footage. Like that's my man. um, so I guess what really piqued my interest was Star Wars. Right, I was on the Lego website. Right, so this was when I peaked with Lego because I was getting more serious. Like I wanted minifigures, like real sets. Right, I was on the Lego website. Man, can't you believe, man, the OG Lego website back in 2010, right? Like, man. So like the Lego website, they have like different sections, right? Like of different like franchises. Clone Wars Anakin Skywalker was on that profile for a while, right? So I clicked on him. And I started checking out that website, like playing some games and all that. And one day, well, I think that was the same day after that, I was like, Mom, I think I want to watch the Star Wars movies. So one day, went to the library, like, ordered them, and then this is how I got exposed to the DVDs. Yeah, I'm happy to own them because even as a kid and growing up, I never thought, like, in 1,000 years, like, oh, I would ever own these DVDs because, again, I've always talked about this too. Like, if you owned these DVDs, you're considered cool. Like, everywhere I went, whatever friend's house I went to and they had these DVDs, they were considered cool. So, yep. And just like Balin says, you're a nerd if you don't like Star Wars. Facts. Okay? That's the new rule now. I didn't come up with it, Balin did, so gotta thank him for that. Like, yes, true Balin. Like, true that. Like, facts. And of course, for the longest time, I was in love with the original trilogy, right? Because honestly, I didn't really care for the Star Wars story, right? Like, whichever movies I was watching, like, just like any kid, like, I was only interested in, like, lightsabers and Jedi and blasters and all that cool stuff. Boba Fett, like, but of course, I was open to understand the story better, right? And thank God for the Clone Wars, like, immediately I knew, like, when I watched the movie, like, I knew that the series was canon, right? Because, I'm happy that the Clone Wars kept going, of course, until, like, 2013, 2014, right? Like, when I look at Star Wars now, I always look back on the first 6 films and the Clone Wars, right? Because those were George's creations, right? And, like, man, look how far we've come. Look how far we've come with Star Wars, right? Like, I guess I came in at the franchise at the right time, like 2010. Like, again, in other videos, I talked about like how Star Wars has peaked so many times, and to me, like 2010, 2011 is when it like peaked. 2012, I couldn't really do much because I was grounded from both Lego and Star Wars, unfortunately. But I knew 2012 Star Wars peaked. Honestly, to me, I think 2010 through 2014 Star Wars peaked, like Lego, like, just because, like, man, there's so many cool sets. Seriously, I am still attached to the 2010 Star Wars sets. Like, I own a couple of them, but, like, oh, man, I wanted that Slave one so bad. And of course, there was like a few Clone Wars sets I wanted to get. Like, man, in the Visual Dictionary, unfortunately, it's I guess a 2011 re-release because you guys were lucky in 2009 if you got that Luke Skywalker ceremonial minifigure, but without the pupils. Like, honestly, that was like the best 11th like birthday present I've ever gotten. Right. Again, like, thank God for the Clone Wars. Like, the only prequel films I was able to watch at the time was 1 and 2, of course. Like, being like a preteen, you know, like I was watching like some PG-13 movies here and there, but like honestly, I think Revenge of the Sith would have scarred me. I don't know, depending on the point of view. I don't know, like at age 13, that's when I finally watched it because that was when I got the complete saga box set, the 2011 one, right? Like, oh man, that's when I was starting to like the prequels a bit better, and again because of the Clone Wars, like, um, it really needed to like back up the prequels, right? Because again, back in the day, I didn't like the prequels as much because I liked the originals, like, and back then, like, don't blame me because I thought of this. Like, I'm sure every kid thought this, right? Like, I thought Anakin was born evil, right? But I didn't truly understand like the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader, right? Like his story is so beautiful. Like, of course he was manipulated, right? Like, and of course he let his emotions cloud his actions, right? Um, yeah, I always thought, oh, Anakin Skywalker was meant to be evil. Like, I think he knows he's gonna become Darth Vader, right? And then, I mean, of course, he redeemed himself in Return of the Jedi, right? I think that's when I liked him because I dissed him a lot during like the prequels, right? Like, and like even not watching Episode 3, like I knew like crap was going on. I let it play in my imagination, like what the movie was like, oh man, funny good times, guys. Like, oh man, I miss those days. Oh man. I still want to own those 2010 Star Wars sets, like, when I can, right? Because, like, only, like, the best of the best, right? Um, so, yeah, I didn't really get much of Star Wars merch, right? Like, 2010. 2011 is when I took it kind of seriously, if you know what I mean. Like, I got in some action figures, some Legos, some books, right? Um, and of course, I was bummed out that I couldn't get the complete Saga box set right away, is because it was so expensive and it had Revenge of the Sith on it. The only yeah, the only reason like my mom told me I couldn't get that right away is because I had Revenge of the Sith. Like, here's the thing, like I was smart enough back in the day, right? Like as a kid, right? I knew like I wouldn't even touch that film, right? So like I still could have watched like the other five, and checked out the bonus features, right? Um, and it really took me a long time to figure out what was my favorite Star Wars movie. Well, I think I already made a decision. I think it was Empire Strikes Back. You know, I remember Episode 2 was my favorite prequel film. But I think in recent years it took me like, to realize, like, you know what, Revenge of the Sith is a freaking masterpiece, bro. I think you talk to a Star Wars fan now, if they tell you like what's like the best Star Wars film, they will say Episode 3, because like, why wouldn't you like it, right? Like, get off them death sticks, bro. If you think like it's not the best, like you want to go home and rethink your life, basically. Yeah, get off them death sticks. Um, I mean, I guess I partially hated Revenge of the Sith after watching a few times because even though I knew what happened, right? Like, it was so sad, you know. Like, can you imagine if that film had gone in a different direction? Like, I think I think George could have easily made the prequels into like a reboot, right? Like, and then that would give the haters, the fans, like, good reasons back in the day to hate him. Because again, social media wasn't like big during the time, right? Like when Kenobi came out on Disney Plus, like Hayden and Ewan, they were talking about like their experiences when those movies came out. Like, yeah, like social media wasn't a thing, right? Of course, there were a few people that liked the prequels, right? Like, so I guess you could say in a way I grew up with those films, even though Phantom Menace came out in '99, and I was born a year after. So, I guess again, technically, I grew up with 2 and 3, right? But honestly, guys, I really wish that this was a franchise that either my parents or my uncle could have exposed to me at a very early age. That's what I'm gonna do. Like when I have kids, whatever age they're gonna be, I'm gonna show them Star Wars. Like, want them to get into it, want them to invest in it. Like, and I love how there are some families that I met over the years growing up, and they're like committed families where like they stick to one franchise, and of course it's Star Wars, and like Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars nonstop. Like I had an art teacher in high school where her family is like committed to Star Wars. Like, yes, I love that. Again, I love families who are just committed and like that. Like sports, who? Like take over. These franchises are taking over. Like again, there's like some committed Marvel families, or like I bet you there's like some committed Five Nights at Freddy's families, like any franchise, right? But growing up, before Disney bought Star Wars, right? Honestly, there was something I kind of knew in the back of my head. I don't know if you guys feel this too back in the George Lucas era, but like, don't you think that Star Wars was kind of meant for adults? I mean, just think about like the dark themes in the movies, and if you own the complete saga box set, if you watch like the documentaries and spoofs, like specifically the spoofs, oh, the stuff that they capture like in the compilation, like there was like a lot of like suggestive like adult themes, which I find funny today. Like again, Robot Chicken was kind of like one of the biggest inspirations, and like honestly, the only time I watch Robot Chicken is Star Wars. Like, I haven't watched all the episodes, but like most of them have been pretty great for the most part. But yeah, just I don't think of it anymore because Disney has made it more family friendly, let's say, and I guess more relevant. Because here's the thing, in this last year, I've kind of come to a realization, guys. You're gonna hate me about this on this, but just hear me out, okay? Like maybe you guys have thought of this too, but what if? I hate to say this as a Star Wars fan, but what if Star Wars has been irrelevant for the longest time until Disney made it bigger, right? Like, think about it, right? Like, sure, George has put a lot of advertising into it, and like the toy sales have been pretty good, but like, I bet you like not a lot of parents back in the day gave a crap about the Clone Wars, right? Like, because, perfect example. I'm not calling him out, but like, my dad is so funny. I'm happy that he accepts anything like Star Wars animation now. But like when it was just the Clone Wars, right? Anytime I put it on, he's like, "Why don't you just put on one of the movies, right?" Like, again, that's when you could tell, right? Like, again, I'm not calling my dad. It's just I think it's funny, right? Because I would just look at him like, really? Are you serious? Like, the Clone Wars is beloved. Like, again, because of the Clone Wars, it made the prequels, like, relevant and loved, Like, in the last, I want to say, 5 years now? Could be 5 plus. Like, a lot of people have been turning to the prequels because, yeah, the sequel trilogy, like, it's not good, Unless if Dave and John, which I don't believe, if they made like a show to back up the sequels are never going to be loved, okay? Like, and I just love in Ahsoka how that show confirmed, like, I didn't even think it was possible. Like, none of us saw this coming, right? Like, there is a multiverse. The multiverse exists in Star Wars, so that means Ahsoka decanonizes the sequels. Like, it's just obvious, I guess you could say I blindly like the sequels back in the day, just because Force Awakens again, like it was a big deal for us Star Wars fans because there hasn't been a Star Wars movie in the theater for so long. Like, we were all just caught up in the moment, right? Like, I love the idea, like, there being, like, Marvel, like, release, at least, like, one film a year, right? Of course, with Marvel, we know that they release, like, multiple films a year. Honestly, guys, the only two Disney Star Wars films I consider to be good and that are actually canon is Rogue One and Solo, right? Seriously, I love Solo. Okay? As good as Rogue One is, Solo is my favorite movie. Like, honestly, I think it's better than Rogue One. Again, I know I can already see the comments like, Blu-ray, why'd you say that? Like, I get, yes, like, Rogue One did the opposite what Force Awakens did, right? Like, again, Rogue One handled diversity better than Eternals, okay? Like, it wasn't forced on us, right? Like, it just came naturally, right? Like, and that's something I want in media in general. Like, Hollywood, if you want diversity in your media, do it how Rogue One did it, okay? It's not that hard. Just watch Rogue One and just be like, okay, we need to do it like this. Like, it just needs to come naturally. Like, and as long as you write like really good written characters, like again, like Jyn Erso, like she was a female lead in Star Wars. Like, yes, that's a perfect example of like how you write a good female lead. And of course, Ahsoka. Honestly, to this day, I think everyone can agree that Ahsoka is like the best female lead in a franchise ever in general. Like, not just Star Wars. Like you look at all these other female leads, like, pfft, and then you look at Ahsoka, like, oh yes, because just because the Clone Wars was a cartoon, that didn't mean it was gonna, like, it broke all the cartoon stereotypes, right? Like, Ahsoka wasn't gonna be like the stereotypical like bubblegum like kid character in the movie, because how she has grown as a character. Like, when you watch Rebels, like how like she's an adult, right? And like she's like OP. Like, again, that's how you write a female character, right? Like, whatever whatever females you're gonna put in your media, like, at least make them good, so they could like have a redemption, right? Like, that character has earned our trust, right? Like, our likings, right? Yeah. And again, I look back on these old DVDs, right? I think, man, we're never gonna see anything like this again. Like, Disney is missing out. Like, can you imagine what the current Disney Star Wars films? Can you imagine if they did it like in this style? I know I've seen on Google where, again, like the sequel trilogy, like they've turned those into like custom DVD covers. Like, Disney, why are you against the Roman numerals? Like, I know you keep them in the intros, but like, how do you expect new Star Wars fans to know which ones to watch, right? Like, I don't watch Star Trek, and I don't intend to, guys. But I'm pretty sure that they'll keep their numbered titles in front of like their Star Trek titles, right? Like, of course, if you've been a long time Star Wars fan, and like when you don't see the Roman numerals, you're like, okay, you're supposed to watch it like this, right? Like, um, so to any new Star Wars fans who's going to be watching this, let me just give you like a brief, not segment, but like, what I'm talking about. So, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Episode 4, A New Hope. Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Again, it's the Roman numerals that stand out. Like, man, it's so cool. Like, when you own the DVD sets, like, whichever colors you get, like, look at the gold and silvers. Like, man, that is so cool. That is so cool, guys. Again, we're never going to see something like that. And, Again, Disney, if you want to win your old Star Wars fans back, make another box set. Like a really good one. Keep the sequels out of it. Like, if you really want 9 films, Disney, okay. 1, 2, the Clone Wars movie, 3, Solo, Rogue One, 4, 5, and 6. There you go. There you go. There's your 9 films. Get rid of the sequels, okay? I mean, yeah, the sequels are still talked about, but just not as much anymore, right? I still don't see the point of Disney making a Rey movie and potentially a new trilogy for the sequels. Like, what are you going to call it, the sequel trilogy? No, just give us the first Jedi origin movie, then we'll be good. Of course, Mando and Grogu, which, by the way, I thought the Mando and Grogu movie was supposed to be the Mandoverse crossover movie. No, I guess that's going to be a separate movie. I wonder if that crossover movie is going to be Heir to the Empire. Think about it, guys. Yeah, and I thought Dave and John were supposed to, like, rewrite the sequels, right? Like, how George was going to make them before he sold the rights to Disney. And, revive Underworlds. That was a TV show that George was supposed to make. It was supposed to be like the first live action Star Wars show. Can you imagine it being on ABC? I think it was supposed to come out on ABC. But of course it got too expensive, like. But of course with Disney, I'm sure that both Dave and John can revive it. And I'm sure that Dave and John will give us pretty much the director's cut of Revenge of the Sith, right? Release it in, like, sure, don't change anything, but, like, I know, we all know it wouldn't be canon, but just, like, see an idea, like, what George was trying to present, like, yeah, this whole time I thought Han Solo was in Revenge of the Sith, you know, like, but, of course, he was supposed to be in there as a kid, and he was supposed to be raised by Wookiees. That would have been interesting. At least the Millennium Falcon made a little appearance in that, and Chewbacca had his time to shine. Whoa, like, where did this conversation go to? Like, I went from talking about my exposure to Star Wars and kind of, like, going on a rant here, like. But I know most of you guys like my rants on this, or, like, whatever I talk about Star Wars, because there will be that one guy in the comments will leave, like, a long comment. I have to, like, go through, like, everything, like. But I want to hear, like, your guys' opinions. Like, okay, first I want to hear, like, how you guys got exposed to Star Wars, and how do you feel about Disney Star Wars now? Like, again, honestly, I like how Disney is making it more relevant, but of course, like, they need to get their crap together. Like, but as of the recording of this video, I watched the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew yesterday, which I forgot it came out like a couple days ago. Let me tell you, it was actually good. And of course the trailers didn't help when I first saw them, because it looked like a parody more than anything. But, like, this might actually go in the right direction. And of course that the series is directed by Spider-Man director John Watts. Like, oh, that's when you know it's going to be good, because knowing John Watts' work with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, like, man. And Bryce Dallas Howard, you gotta love her. Like, she's probably, like, the biggest geek in all the, like, the directors there. I was about to say roundtable. Like, technically, well, you could definitely trust her too. Like, Mandalorian was the biggest risk, you know? It turned out to be, like, it came as the first live-action Star Wars TV show, and of course it's loved by millions. Like, okay, Disney, like, of course Season 3 bombed, right? You could have still made bank with Season 3 if you just created, like, a good story, right? I would still watch it. Like when I'll get the Steelbook Adventure for Season 3, I'm gonna binge watch it, and of course I'm gonna be like, man, where did it all go wrong? Like, Disney. The reason why the first two seasons worked was because you had good directors, good writers, Henry Gilroy being one of them. And even though the first season was decent, it still had like good episodes, right? Like a good story, and you sold a lot of Grogu toys. And of course, season two got better. Like, sure, you learn from your mistakes from season one, but you made it better, right? Like the cameos, the little appearances in season two, like they're warranted, like they're justified, but in season three, when you were just like, there's a lot of things running in my mind right now about season three. Like, Jack Black was not needed for the show. It's basically Jack Black playing Jack Black in Star Wars. Like, as much as I think like he's still a funny actor, he was not needed in that show. Of course, Moff Gideon's death was to be expected, right? Like, I honestly thought it ended like in a good way, like how he died, right? Of course, there are some like good pointers in season three, right? But like most of the story is just it's just bad, right? Like, what happened? Again, Disney, you still could have made bank with Mandalorian if you had a good story, right? Like, of course, it's all about greed. It's all about greed. Like, it's no surprise to us, okay? As much as we hate it, like, we still love some of these projects, right? Like, I'm not gonna sit there blindly like, oh, this is like the greatest thing ever. Like, no. Season 3 was, I wouldn't say it's trash, no. Was it bad? Yeah. Like, but could it have gone in a better direction? Absolutely, guys. No doubt in my mind. If you asked any Star Wars fan about Season 3, they will give you, like, a whole list of, like, I guess everything wrong about it, right? Like, because, again, not the whole season was bad. It's just, like, there was, again, some good moments, right? And I don't know if this is one of the bad things that people were talking about of season 3, but like Disney was pushing like was it like, oh gosh, what's her name? Like from the Clone Wars and Rebels, Bo-Katan. I think they were trying to like push like Bo-Katan to like, well, she kind of was an important character in that season. Like they were trying to like push like oh, she needs to be the new ruler, Mandalore, right? So we have to like forget good stories. Like let's try to like push things into the season, right? Yeah. Yeah. Again, Disney, you still gonna make bank with season 3. You just need to have good writers, you know? And I bet you it was out of Dave and John's control, right? I am so sorry, guys. But from what I've been hearing recently, I think Kathleen Kennedy's time at Lucasfilm might be up. Because I had no idea she was in her early 70s. Her contract might be up next summer. You know what that means? Disney is going to have to give the position of, was a chairman or like the president of Lucasfilm to either Dave or John. And I really don't see the point of like being pissed off at Dave. Like sure, every, I guess, best person in whatever industry or company, whatever, they're gonna say the wrong thing. We're not always gonna agree with them, but like at the end of the day, we should trust like what they're planning, right? So like, oh, Dave said this, now we have to turn against him, like, get him canceled. Like, just because he said a couple of things. Again, I don't agree with some of the things he said, but that doesn't make me go like, oh, Dave Filoni's like the worst person. Like, he should have been canceled a long time ago before he got hired for the Clone Wars, right? Like, but I'm sure now it's 50-50, like, who wants to be the president of Lucasfilm? Like, it's either Dave or John, right? Like, Marvel is the reason, like, John is working in Star Wars, right? Oh, but what's going to happen if John said the wrong thing, huh? Like, you're going to over-exaggerate your opinions and be like, oh, John's a bad person. He said this about Star Wars. Like, oh, he needs to be canceled. Let's go back to loving Dave. Woo! Like, again, you don't have to agree with other people's opinions. You could respectfully disagree and still respect that person, right? Like, come on, especially like grown adults who should know better. Like, what are you trying to teach like your kids? Like, it's okay to like over exaggerate or potentially make death threats to people. Like, no. For people who say these kinds of things or have these ideas, like, they should go to prison. Can we all agree on that, guys? Because, like, again, like, tomorrow, Jon Favreau, he could say something like, oh, Rey Skywalker is the best female character in Star Wars, or the best character in Star Wars general. And, like, sure, I wouldn't agree with it, but, like, I wouldn't go trashing on him. I would just, again, respectfully disagree, right? Like, but I can never see John saying that about Rey, because Rey had zero character development. Like, man, can't believe I justified her since 2015. Anyway, this video turned out to be pretty long, guys. I apologize, but, like, you know what? There's probably, like, some things I want to get off my chest, but, like, in a good way, right? Like, I just wanted to, like, cover, like, some of the stuff that's been going on in the fandom in the last couple of years or whatever. Like, at the end of the day, we're all Star Wars fans, right? Like, we're going to have different opinions about the franchise. We're going to agree, disagree, but I know that one thing's for sure that all of us Star Wars fans can agree on is that the Acolyte sucks. And it is not canon. Nope. The show could have had potential, but, you know, political agendas and bad directors, writers, like, Disney, I thought you were going in a better direction. Bob Iger should have immediately canceled that show, like, before it came out. Believe me, guys, I did not want to watch all the episodes, but unfortunately I did, to form, like, a better opinion, and why I didn't make a video on it after watching, like, after the rage, like, it got canceled, like, oh my gosh, people were freaking out. I unsubscribed from Star Wars Explained because both him and his wife are feminists, and, like, he lets his wife, like, rule, like, above him. Like, oh my gosh, like, dude, you're a man. You're not supposed to be a feminist, okay? You're supposed to be a Chad. And I'm always going to defend Star Wars Theory. He's, like, the best podcast commentator on this platform, guys. I don't know why he's still getting hate. Come on, guys. You've been harassing this guy for how many years? Really, it's time to grow up, guys. Stop making death threats and over-exaggerating your opinions. Like, oh, Star Wars Theory said this, he said that, like, he needs to be canceled. Like, no, he's just forming his own opinion. Again, everybody has those. Everybody has the right to have an opinion. Like, again, freedom of speech. You can't shut us up. So, yeah. I'm always going to defend Star Wars theory. Sure, there's a few things that I don't agree with him. Again, like, I'm respectfully disagreeing, but at the end of the day, I know that he's a really cool dude, and he should not get crapped on, period. Okay, guys? Alright, that's pretty much what I have to say, so thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Please on the post notification bell and share my content if you haven't already. And, yeah, even I'm over-exaggerating this outro. Like, I should have been done, like, a couple minutes ago. But, like, again, just, I want to hear your opinions about Star Wars now, guys. And, like, how you got exposed to the franchise. And what do you think, what's, like, the better direction they could go. Like, again, bring in better writers. Bring in better directors. Just make good stuff, okay? No more Acolyte, okay? No more Star Wars Visions. That's right, I went there. And I'm happy that show's not canon. Alright. You guys have a good night now. Peace out, guys. Remember, may the Lord and may the Force be with you guys. Always love you guys. Peace out, guys.